Another one. Another one. Touchdown, Jags! Ball game!
Another Jags podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to another Jags podcast, episode 38. We are a few days removed from an incredibly embarrassing loss that the Jaguars had against the Dallas Cowboys. And I, for one, am glad that we waited a little bit to simmer down and get our heads about us. We have with us tonight Jason, Joey, and myself. The three J's are in studio, and so we're gonna talk a little bit of, well, who knows? We're gonna talk about the Cowboys game. We're also gonna be talking about the upcoming home game against the Houston Texans, a big game. We're going to do our best to stay on track tonight, but there's a good chance that we go down several different rabbit trails. I'm sure we're going to talk about the coaching. I'm sure we're going to talk about Bortles. We're going to talk about the offense, the injuries, and really ultimately what the future holds for this team this season. Before we get into all that, we do want to remind everyone we are on Twitter at Another Jags Pod, and we are on Instagram and Facebook at Another Jags Podcast. You can reach out to us there. If you want to listen to episodes and you're not really familiar with podcasting, you can just go to YouTube and search Another Jags Podcast, and we will be right there, and you can listen to all of our episodes, or just go to our website, www.anotherjagspodcast.com.
Which is better than the Jaguars at this point.
Oof, man, that's saying something, Joey. Coming out swinging. Coming out swinging.
I like it.
We want to start tonight doing something a little bit different. We're going to start with our Twitter questions, though.
And Reddit. Don't forget the Jaguars subreddit. We love them, too. We get some good questions on there as well.
We want to recognize those that had some comments and asked us some things. So, Jason, why don't you give us our first question of the night?
Okay. And I'm just picking this one randomly.
Sure.
Because it was pretty good. This is from Michael Harrison. He's at Loves Cougars. And he says, are we really fixing to mess around and go 8-8? Blake can't get blocking, but brother is throwing into triple coverage. Defense is out of place and couldn't make a stop until the second half. Could trading for the offensive line be a cure? Because I don't know how much Flowers fixed that.
I'm going to start going backwards with that from the last thing he said, and we can kind of work our way all the way back towards Bortles. Trading for offensive linemen at this point in the season is not going to happen. There's no team is going to trade anybody for a good offensive lineman. The reason that we signed Eric Flowers is because he was available, and they just need bodies at this point. I doubt they saw him because we played him the first week of the season. Calais Campbell made him look like a child. I don't think they saw him and go, there's a lot of potential there. It's just we need a body. At this point, it's a matter of attrition for the Jaguars on the offensive line. And so Flowers was available, so that's who they got. If you're expecting a good to really good offensive lineman to come through the Jaguars' front doors, it's not going to happen. Teams need their offensive linemen. We see what happens when you don't have good offensive linemen. We're living that out right now. So would a trade help? Absolutely, but it's not going to happen. So I say, let that dream go.
I mean, I have to agree. I mean, I think the best fix for us is the offensive line, but that's also, like you said, the hardest to fix, especially midseason. My favorite thing about Flowers, he's a first-round draft pick. That says something. He's obviously got some kind of
That means
ability.
nothing. That means absolutely nothing.
It does mean something. I mean, you don't go first round for no reason, but he's been horrible. And the favorite thing about him with me is after he played us, he said that he didn't realize that Calais Campbell was a power rusher. Like, really? Dude's a monster. What, is he a speed rusher? Don't man.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, if he gives us anything, I'll be happy. And like I said, he's a body. So it is what it is.
I don't know what to tell you, man. I really don't. I've heard people say, move Norwell to tackle, move Linder to guard, and move Shatley in at center. Is that really any worse than any other scenario that anyone's thrown out there?
Not at all. I definitely think Shatley goes to center. Absolutely.
I just don't get it. The offensive line is bad. It's bad. But I'm just in this place of just what are you going to do? We've sat here all offseason and said the offensive line needed addressing. Everyone in here thought we were going to draft an offensive lineman in the first round. Joey thought we were going to get Lamar Jackson, but everyone else thought we were going to get an offensive lineman. And it's like, or a tight end to come in and block and help block. It's like, if all the fans knew this was going to happen and like saw this as a potential problem, did we know all these injuries were going to happen? No, but we saw this as being a potential problem. Like, we kind of knew Parnell wasn't that good. We knew Can has his moments where he's not good. And then if there's an injury, we knew Cam Robinson had games where he wasn't good. I mean, it's really their fault. It really is their fault. And they waited too long to try to address this. And now all they have left is Eric Flowers.
I mean, they did sign Andrew Norwell, which at the time we on here were doing cartwheels over because he was the number one guard in the NFL, didn't give up a sack last year at all. But, I mean, that clearly was a miss, or it has been so far. I don't
think it's a miss. I mean, he had a bad missed block on the third drive of the game when we were in field goal range, but
remember, they paid him at the time. He was the number one paid guard in the NFL.
Yeah.
Would you say that's...
Yeah, but he's okay. Like, he's not injured. I mean, that's something.
He's also had some anti-clutch, like, hands to the face penalties as well, man. I mean, I'm not pleased with his production.
He has not lived up to the billing.
He's not. I mean, not what we're paying him. I mean, he's probably our best person on the line to date.
Well,
Linder's pretty good.
Linder's pretty good. I mean, okay, them too.
Yeah.
But
for Linder's paid a lot too.
Exactly. But for the money, man...
I think he'll be okay. I'm not really concerned about him. I've watched enough film of him to know that he's going to come around.
Yeah,
I would have to agree with that.
Yeah, he's not a concern, but he would. I think if everyone was healthy, he would be a concern. But he's not because of just all the other areas are so weak. He certainly hasn't lived up to what we thought he was going to be.
And I will say, for the record, yes, I was definitely pro Lamar Jackson, but I was also very pro Sonny Michel. So at this point, either one of those would have been a huge improvement with our situation right now, because Lamar can get out of the pocket and Sonny Michel would have filled in great when Leonard Fournette went down. So
you're right there. I mean, and what we can all agree on is that the Taven Bryan pick was not a smart pick. That was an investment into the future, not this season. And say what you will about his athletic prowess and all that good stuff, he's playing a very small percentage of snaps when we need people to play on the offensive side of the ball right now.
He's a classic upside potential guy. He was that in high school, he was that in college, and he's that with the Jags.
And he very well could still be that.
He could be.
But we need people this season. And Jason mentioned it already. It wasn't just running back, and offensive line. A tight end in the first round would have been huge because I'm assuming Safarian Jenkins hasn't been healthy at all season. He is on the IR, but he can come back. I believe it's December 6th, so he's not necessarily gone for the year, but he has not been the player, even when he was on the field, that we thought he was going to be. And I'm going to assume that's because he's been fighting with this injury, all season long. So that's another position that we could have addressed in the draft that they didn't, and they went. I understand a lot of teams, they continue to invest into their strength, but it just seems like the first round was they did not do a good job drafting in that first round. And I'll also say when they did address the offensive line, they got a guy who has not been active yet. Think about that. A guy they drafted in the fourth round, Will Richardson, with all the problems that we have on the offensive line, they haven't even activated him for a game yet.
Which nobody talks about.
No, they should be, because that you want to talk about
we said he was bad.
Yeah,
I said he was bad.
How bad could he be when they're
bad?
pulling these
I
like
told
guys
you
that
he was
haven't played
terrible.
in 4 years?
He was awful. He's no foot. I mean, I'm not going to hate on a guy, but he's not good. Okay, he's not good.
Fair enough.
Well, clearly,
he's
clearly,
really bad though. For at this point,
he showed nothing in college.
It makes me wonder, what were they looking at? I mean, I understand in fourth round,
he's big. He's big. He's got size.
I just don't understand why they haven't activated him yet when they drafted him this year. What was the point of that pick?
Man, in the preseason, I know I was very much like saying, if we hit a bunch of injuries, man, we're done. And, everybody was still saying that happens to every team. But dude, this year's been ridiculous. Last year, we got really lucky with that. I mean, outside the players that we know aren't playing, I mean, right now, out of practice today, Calais Campbell, ankle. Didn't even talk about his ribs where he went out last week. You've got Leonard Fournette, which we know is out. DJ Hayden, toe. Trey Herndon, another cornerback, hamstring. Brandon Linder, knee. Norwell, foot. O'Shaughnessy, hip. Parnell, knee. Yeldon, foot, ankle. I mean, dude, it's like a walking wounded out there.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And I know we say every week, and it's true, that every team deals with this, but some years you just deal with it more than others. And I think this is one of those years for the Jaguars, and it is exposing things, though. Would you say that's true?
I mean, from a coaching staff standpoint, I mean, I don't think they've been able to make any adjustments to help whatsoever, which I was very surprised by. Kind of doubting them at this point.
Let me ask you guys this. You guys were all pro this intense Doug Marrone training camp that we had where they beating each other up and they're going 8 hours every single day. Do you wish now that he would have scaled that back a little bit?
That's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. I don't know. I mean, it worked last season, but you have to wonder.
I mean, it kind of did. I mean, we lost Allen Robinson in the first game of the year.
Fair enough, but the outcome was okay because I guess we got pretty lucky throughout it. But I guess maybe a second session of that, it was I don't know, because I mean, it's a lot.
I mean, one of the guys that we talked about, Safarian Jenkins, had one of the most quotable moments about it, and he hasn't been healthy all year.
Yeah.
But
he also said that in the first preseason games, he'd never felt that good playing in a game.
Yeah, real good.
Well, yeah.
Hadn't been healthy the whole season.
I mean, maybe so.
I get it. It's luck a lot of times, but I just wonder,
No, I don't think it has anything to do with it, really. If anything, based on how the healthy players have been, say maybe it wasn't hard enough, honestly. I mean, I think we're seeing some entitlement from the team where they just expected teams to roll over for them. And maybe the message didn't get through enough that this is a reset. And whatever happened last year, you don't get to carry over to this year. And so, I just think injuries happen. These guys are huge men who run incredibly fast and have giant muscles. It's just to me natural that these things are going to happen. But it's just how it's happened so quickly to the Jags. Only 6 games into the season is unbelievable. So it's not like these players are, if you spread it out across 16 games, then you have time to kind of fill the need because it's just cracks in the dam. But right now it's the floodgates are open for the injuries, and it's a major concern for the Jags going forward that could completely really ruin their season.
I mean,
amongst other things.
I almost hope that is the reason, because if we can, scrap together a few wins here and there in between a couple losses, and then, everybody's back towards this, third quarter of the season, we'd still have a shot at it. My major concern, if we're going back to what's happening, what do we think it is that the league's changed and we didn't change with them. I mean, we're an old school, power running team and strong defense, and the entire league now is a little defense and throw the ball 400 yards a game and sling it all over the place.
Can you be a power running team, or can you identify yourself as a power running team when you only have one power runner on the roster that's at least worth anything? Yeah. Because outside of Fournette,
I mean, look at the
Yeldon's
Cowboys.
not. What's that?
Look at the Cowboys.
Yeah, you got Zeke.
I mean, they don't have anyone outside of Zeke that does anything, and they're a power running team. I mean, if we have Fournette, maybe we are the Cowboys, but...
Well, they also have a really good offensive line.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But they do it. And
I'm just saying, if they were saying all the time they were a power running team and Leonard Fournette's the only guy that is considered a power runner, I don't know. To me, that's kind of risky.
Dude, him going out is devastating.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to worry about a running game at all. And all you have to do is drop back and make Blake beat you, which that's not who he is.
Yeah.
So especially with a bunch of receivers that aren't getting open. I mean, it's like a perfect storm, man.
We talk about injuries though, and it's not that big. I mean, look at AJ Cann had a 29 pass block rating. That's the worst I've ever seen from an offensive lineman. That's not a guy that's injured or a backup. That's AJ Cann. Okay. Jeremy Parnell, 41 pass block rating. Really bad. This is not an injured guy. This is a starter we were counting on. So definitely injuries are a concern, but the starters need to step up. The coaches need to call better plays. The guys who we're counting on need to make plays.
Oh yeah. I'm not by any means blaming all of this on injuries. Even close, but it is a factor. And I think, going to those grades, I think, something that you need to consider is the teams they're not respecting the run game because they can't run block for Yeldon. Or actually, I take that back. He actually had a pretty good game on Sunday against Dallas. I don't know if because he's dinged up, but they just don't give him the ball like they would if he was a premier number 1 running back. But I don't know. I think those grades can be a little skewed based on what's going on in the game. Eventually, these defensive linemen start pinning their ears back, and they're just going to go after Blake, especially when they're up a lot and they know that the Jags have to pass, which is what's happening. They're getting down in these holes, and it becomes, like Joey said, Blake's got to win the game. And so these guys are going to go after Blake. Who wouldn't?
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we've always been dominant when we go up early and we can dictate the tempo and what we're doing. And we've never been good if we go down early. I mean, we're not a come from behind team for the most part. And this year we've had to do that a lot for numerous reasons. And we're probably going to continue to have to. I mean, I don't know, man.
It's scary when your team is down by 10 early in the first quarter and in your head you're going, it's over.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt against Dallas. I mean, I actually texted that in our thread, like, this game's over, 10-0. That's all it takes. I mean, there was 3+ quarters to go in the game, and you just knew, looking at the team, that they were not only were they not going to win, but it was going to be an ugly day from the get-go.
The scariest part about the Dallas game to me was that our defense was awful. I mean, we made guys, Dallas only had 2 touchdowns the entire season up to that point, and they put 40 on us. I mean,
I think it was 2 touchdowns per game. They never scored more than 2 touchdowns in a game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, either way,
Still.
I mean, we made them look dominant when they've been a pretty bad offense to that point. Made a wide receiver, what was it, Cole Beasley?
Cole Beasley,
Cole, yeah. I mean, that guy looked like a freaking Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was open the entire game.
I'm hesitant to blame the defense.
I didn't say that I blame the defense, but I'm saying that
Okay,
our defense was not good.
You
So
said they had a bad
Are they
game.
giving up?
you said they had a bad game.
But are they giving up is my point. Are they blaming the
I don't
offense?
think so. I don't think it's their fault. And this is why. And this is what I'll tell you. I think Barry Church had a bad game. I don't think the defense had a bad game. After the 4th drive for both teams, so both teams had completed their 4th offensive drive of the game. The Jaguars had ran 16 offensive plays. The Cowboys had ran 40.
Gosh.
After 4 drives. So I get the defense did give up 2 touchdowns on the first 2 drives or a touchdown and a field goal on the first 2 drives of the game. You don't want that to happen, but when it's halftime, and this is at halftime, the score's 24-0, and you had 16 offensive plays to rest as a defense and had to play 40. Can you really say they had a bad game?
You can, because a lot of that is them not making the plays they did last year. I mean, Dak had 2 fumbles that bounced right back up into his arms. You can't really control that.
But if they had more time to rest, would they be better?
Dude, it's the beginning of the game. You should be fresh. You should be able to play a first half with that many. I mean, you should. I mean, I don't think that matters. Second half, okay, I would agree with that. But, I mean, they didn't stop people as part of the reason. I mean, that one drive was like 7 minutes or something like that? I mean, they didn't stop them. You should have been fresh at that point. So I definitely think they had a major impact on that. I just hope it's that they're not like getting pissed at the offense and giving up because they know our offense isn't going to do anything. Because we're in trouble big time if that's the case.
This question is from Jaguars subreddit, and this is from user WCBY. And he asks, what's our biggest area of concern so far? Is it the running back situation, the wide receiver core, or coaching? I think it's the coach's inability to adapt and change the game plan. If we don't figure this out quick, I can see this plaguing us in the future, especially the playoffs.
When we were on defense for the 4th time, 16-play drive, it was 4th and 2, and we had too many men on the field. Automatic first down. That's on the coaches. That's on the coaches.
Unacceptable.
How can you blame the defense for that, for having too many guys on the field?
I blame everybody.
I mean, you got to have a coach that's going, wait a second, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, time out. We got 12. Like, that's why you have people up in a booth looking down in a glassed-in environment with a headset on. How can you blame the players for that?
I mean, Marone's on that as well. I mean, his comment was the coaching, we need to coach better. He took it on himself.
But I mean, that's if they get off the field there, it's 17-0, and they're getting the ball back with 1 drive left in the half. That's a totally different game.
Definitely makes a difference.
And what do they do? The coaches have too many men on the field. Okay, maybe it was a bonehead player that ran out there and he wasn't supposed to. Call a timeout. That's why you have 3. Like, I just...
Who was the player so I can hate him even more?
Well, it's hard to know because you don't know the defense called, but it's you got to... What do you expect them to do? I mean, it's a 16-game season. Are they going to give up 40 points a game? Are they going to give up 40 points sometimes? Yeah, they might. I mean, they gave up 40 to the Steelers in the playoffs. But at some point, we got to look at the real issue here, and that's, in my opinion, the decision-making from the offseason until now in the front office and with the coaches. And I love them. I think they're great. They just got to start making the right decisions.
All right. So, I mean, that kind of brings up a good point. Our biggest problem now, do you think is coaching and play calling, Fournette being out, Bortles, or the defense possibly not playing like they should?
I think as coaches, I'll call it decision-making. That's play calling, who to bring in the offseason, what free agents to sign, decisions, and Fournette being out. I think those are the two biggest factors.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The coaching has been lackluster to say the least. I can't be so quick to not put some of the blame on the players, though. I mean, coaches aren't on the field. The players have to execute to an extent, and they had no pass rush on Dak whatsoever. Seems like the entire game. I would say the only player that I thought had a really good game actually was Ramsey. It seemed like he played really well, which I think we all thought going into he would, just because their receivers aren't great. But I mean, consider the Cowboys the week going into that game. Jason Garrett was on the hot seat. Allen Hurns, who is about as mild-mannered as it gets, was calling out his team, or at least it appeared that way.
He definitely was.
Yeah, and I mean, they were a train wreck going into this game. A train wreck. And they came out and steamrolled us. And I mean, I'm sorry, but yes, the coaching needs to be better, but everybody needs to be held accountable. The players have got to make plays. Eventually, you have got to make a play, because coaches can't get out and put on the pads and do stuff for you. And we have several Pro Bowlers on the defensive side of the ball that flat out are not playing like Pro Bowlers. And eventually they've got to. And to Joey's point about are they not caring, I think they do care a lot. But when you go into a game and you don't have your best first quarter and you're down 10 and then 17-0, I mean, all of a sudden the pressure for you to play better is ramped up exponentially, because on the other side of the ball, you have an offense that has a hard time scoring now more than ever. I mean, we have a real problem on the offensive side of the ball. We have a team that cannot score points. We have a quarterback that I believe is getting exposed. I mean, I love Blake as much as the next guy, but I have zero confidence in him bringing the Jaguars back when they're down, especially double digits. 7 points, 3 points maybe, but multiple scores, I have zero confidence in him right now.
All right, well, let me just counter that one point real quick, because there were a couple plays that I noticed in that game, especially a big play where he took a sack on the 5th drive of the game, where there's just absolutely nobody open.
Yeah.
I mean, you could see from the end zone, he did not have anybody open. And if he were to try to make a play and force a ball, he would have thrown a turnover. So he has to get there and take a sack or throw the ball away out of bounds. It makes it look like he's not accurate, but there's nobody open. His receivers aren't creating separation for him.
And dude, he had Dede take one off the head, not the back, the front of the head. I mean, dude, you got to catch that ball.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I agree with all
better.
that.
He needs to be better, but
he absolutely does.
You got to get some help.
Yeah.
And they're not blocking for him. They're not catching the ball, and the play callers aren't calling good plays for him. I mean, he's in a tough spot right now.
Just remember, he's their guy. They didn't draft anybody. They did not bring any competition in for him. They signed him to an extension. If that's your feeling towards your quarterback, then he's got to make some plays because they have trusted him with this offense. And so if that's who they think he is, then he had better rise above some of those difficulties, don't you think? I mean, he's a franchise quarterback.
So what can you do if no one's open and no one's blocking?
I don't know.
Scramble, and that's what he does.
Yeah, but there were some times where he scrambled too soon, where he gave up on a play and just took off. And I get it. Listen, I'm not. Again, there's blame to go around everywhere. I'm not saying that it's all his fault. I'm not saying it's all the defense. This is a collective blaming set. I mean, no one is free. No one. It might save maybe 2 or 3 players, but he's got to do more. He has to if he's the franchise guy, which they may not have said specifically, but that's what they've communicated with how they've built this team. They didn't give him an offensive lineman. They didn't give him a tight end. They didn't give him a running back. They didn't bring any competition in. They invested in the defense in the draft. So that tells me that they think he's good enough to make the players around him better. And that's not happening.
I disagree. I think they brought him back in based on the fact that they did get Norwell. The offensive line played great last year. They were going to have Fournette back and hopefully healthy their entire season. And they had receivers that were all going to their second year. I think that's what they were basing it on, and all that's fallen apart. So
you're saying that for Blake to be successful, everyone else has to be good at what they're doing?
No, absolutely. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not Tom Brady. Nobody expects him to be that or shouldn't expect him to be that. He's not going to be a good quarterback with somebody running him down every play unblocked and no legit running back and wide receivers that aren't getting open.
I mean,
man.
can you at least admit that he needs to play better?
He does. I mean, but there's been plenty of plays where he is playing good and the ball's not getting caught or the receiver's not making the right route or, I mean, there's plenty of things like that, man. I mean, he's not that guy that's going to take the game on his shoulders and win the game for
I understand that. But the team, and maybe this is what Jason was saying earlier, the management has put that on him to do that by how they have brought people in. I think the really, to me, the only real attempt they made was Norwell. And Norwell was we all thought was a great signing. And they went out and they tried with that. But outside of that, I mean, their message is Blake's the guy. And so if that's the case, then...
Or their message is our defense is going to win games for us like they did last year.
Well, that's
and they're
clearly not working.
It's not. Yeah. I mean, it's a dumpster fire right now.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Blake needs to be Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, we all know that's not true. But I am saying you can't keep making excuses for him because of how everyone else is doing too. The receivers can't, just like the receivers can't say, well, Blake's my quarterback. That's blah blah blah. No, you need to get open. But everyone needs to step up, and Blake is no exception to that. He needs to play better. And I don't know how that works when you have an offensive line that's completely shot, but it starts with him. That's the case. That's what being a quarterback is. That's what it means in this league. It starts with you.
And I text out to our group text because obviously we're not insiders. How much of the play calling is Blake's responsibility? Like how much flexibility does he have at the line to change the play call based on what he thinks is going to happen? And I don't think he has a lot. I think a lot of what they're doing is scripted. I said this 3 podcasts ago. I think they set it out. This is going to be our guy this week. This is who we're going to. If that doesn't work, they don't make adjustments, man. Their adjustments mid-game are atrocious. I mean, how many times does Bill Belichick look horrible in the first half, and then the second half they come back and dominate? Sure, Tom Brady, he has a lot to do with that, but I think Belichick has much to do with that based on what he changes. Our coaches do not do that.
Yeah, you're right. I can't argue with that.
I mean, I just think there's a couple guys that just need to step up that it isn't Blake's fault. AJ Cann, Keelan Cole, Telvin Smith, Barry Church. Those 4 guys have got to step up if we're going to win games. We've counted on them. We counted on them in the offseason to be better this year, and all 4 have regressed. So we need to get something out of them. I mean, Telvin's getting paid a lot of money to be playing the way he is. Mm-hmm. And we give a lot of crap to all these guys that we paid money to, and no one mentions Telvin. I mean, he's not playing good this year. Barry Church, I understand he's not paid a lot. He's getting kind of older, but he's playing terrible. They're abusing him on drag routes. Cole Beasley and tight ends, they're just dragging across the field. Nothing he can do about it. He cannot keep up with these guys. AJ Cann, these guys got to step up. I understand the injuries are bad, but the guys that are coming in for our injured players aren't terrible. You know, Josh Walker played pretty decent last week at left tackle, which is kind of surprising in my opinion. You have a guy like DJ Chark is kind of beginning to step it up a little bit. Yeah. You said some stuff about Taven Bryan, but he played pretty well. He was the only guy that chased down Dak Prescott on a bootleg last week.
Was that the one where he didn't know where Dak Prescott was?
No, not that play. And it's hard to get a pass rush on Dak Prescott. The dude just scrambles as soon as, it's a tough guy to get down, but that's besides the point. But I mean, I get it that we're injured. Having Marquise Lee down might be the biggest injury we had all year. Because that was Blake's go-to guy.
Well, not just that, but the blocking as well.
Yeah, he was a great down the field blocker.
I mean, I think his role in our team was very, very understated.
Very much so.
Fournette too, but it's just these guys that we were counting on got to step up.
What about the injury to Hayden? Because honestly, it seems like as soon as he was out, that really made our defense fall apart.
He was playing well before he got hurt. It's hard to know. I mean, he's supposed to be back, right? After the bye, isn't that what they said? Hopefully after the bye we're getting a bunch of people back, so maybe that's our window.
I mean, that's what I think. I mean, that's what I hope.
It's a long 2 games away, though.
Yeah,
it's a long 2 games away.
A divisional game and a game in London.
What about going back? You were saying Church. Is it time for Ronnie Harrison to start making a few more appearances?
He's playing linebacker for the most part.
Seriously, I mean, I'm trying to look here. Ronnie Harrison is.
They're putting him in.
They drafted him as a safety.
He had 20 snaps last week.
They did, but he's playing basically linebacker role, which again, that's due to our lack of depth.
Leon Jacobs had 10 for reference. Taven Bryan had 22. It's about the same.
Yeah.
So he's playing as much as any rookie.
I mean, you know, I was saying, you know, about Taven Bryan in the draft. I mean, if Calais keeps getting nicked up, you know, there's your guy to replace him.
But Calais has still been one of our most consistent defensive guys.
Absolutely.
And he played all but 15 snaps.
Yeah.
It's just crazy how many guys are banged up this early in the
really
season.
is.
Usually that kind of injury list is week 15, week 16, which is understandable. I don't know. It's just tough right now. It's tough. I mean, I get it. I watched the game. I saw the offensive line being terrible, but for me, you know, again, I love Blake. I want him to succeed. I'm not a Blake hater. I wouldn't consider myself that, but at some point, you know, this is fifth year. This is fifth year in his league. We at some point you have to stop making excuses for him a little bit and say you got to do something, man. You're supposed to be the leader. You're the quarterback, whether that's in the locker room or on the sideline or on the field. We need more out of you, just like we need more out of Telvin. I think Telvin's that guy on the defensive side. So you got to call everybody out if you're going to call one or the other.
For sure. And that's an interesting point because, honestly, Blake's play, how he plays on the field, I'm less concerned with that because I think there's a lot of things that, you know, lead to that. But we're talking to, you know, it was on 1010. I can't remember who said it, but they were talking about like the leaders on the offense. And they were like, you know, Linder is not that guy. He's quiet. I'm like, dude, Linder, you're a center. You kind of got to be.
Right.
Like Fournette's our captain, but he's not there. And even with him being there, he's like the jokester and stuff like that. And like, there's no mention of Bortles being a leader on offense, which that to me is the biggest issue. Like if you're the quarterback, you've got to be the man as far as all that goes.
Right.
And if he's not being, then that concerns me more than what I've seen so far this season with his play calling and what he's doing on the field.
Also, at Chris Hunter 7 also asked, is it time to brace for 8-8 and draft a quarterback?
Oof. Okay. Well, let's go there. It's hard to, I'm not going to prognosticate too much about the rest of the season, all 10 games, but I will say this. Going into the Houston game this week, I said last week that the Dallas game was a must win, but not so much because of how it, just to see how the team responds, obviously, to the loss to Kansas City. Obviously, they didn't respond well. And now it does put us in a real hole. And I would say that this Texans game is a legitimate, true must-win. Because if they lose to the Texans, they are now 3-4, 0-2 in the division, and they have to go to London to play the Eagles, who look to be getting their stride.
Yeah, it'd be great to play the Eagles like 4 games ago.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. It's tough.
I mean, preseason, I said 10-6. You guys like ragged me to all heck, and
Yep.
as a true homer, you know, I modified that. But the reason I initially said that was just because I know we're playing a harder schedule this year, and also, I mean, you just never know any given Sunday, right? I mean, you put the guys on the field. There's games that aren't going to go your way, but I think 10-6 is a stretch right now.
Yeah.
I mean, based on what we have right now, who's healthy and how we're playing, and I think that's a stretch. And I'm definitely scared to crap about this game against Houston. I mean, if we win the game, we're first in the division.
Yeah.
Still, which, I mean, that says a lot. But, dude, if we're going up against Clowney, Merciless, Watt, and we got no offensive line, I mean, that right there is enough to make me think that, hey, we have got no chance.
Man. I'm just so conflicted with everything. I don't know where to stand. You know, I'm happy we're not 2015 Jags. So let me just say that. 'Cause there's some dark days in there. You know, some
That last
dark
game looked pretty close, man.
dark days. But we're not there. We already had 3 wins this year.
I agree.
All right.
And we had the same amount of wins last year, right?
Exactly. We're in the same exact spot we were last year. Same exact spot. And you know what everyone...
Except we have like 8,000 injuries this year.
I meant record-wise.
Oh, okay.
And what was everyone saying after every loss last year?
Same Jags again.
Is Blake the guy?
Mm-hmm.
After every loss. When we were alternating, is Blake the guy? Blake's not the guy. Blake is the guy. Here we are again. Same situation, asking, is Blake the guy? Well, I'm saying he is. And I think he'll be all right. Because the same reason why everyone loves Blake is the same reason why he's going to get out of this. Because I don't think this is all entirely his fault. Does he lead the NFL in interceptions? Yes, he does. Okay. But do I think they're his fault? I mean, he hit the guy in the helmet. That was probably his fault. But
What about when he threw into triple coverage? Whose fault was that?
But,
Like half and half.
But I think, if there's one thing about Blake, he's resilient. He's going to be all right. He's going to come back and lead the team.
Here's why I don't agree with you. And I hate this. I don't want to be saying this, but I have to be honest. The fact that it's the 5th year of his time in the NFL, it's his 5th year in the league, and we're still asking that question. You said last year we were asking this question, is Blake guy. We're still asking that question. Well, eventually you have to call a spade a spade. If we're still asking if he's the guy, chances are he may not be, which concerns me. I hate that. I want him to be the guy so bad, but I mean, come on. How many chances can you give a guy?
But when we asked that question last year, the final result was that we were in the AFC Championship game, and Blake led us there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're asking that question, but are we just asking it prematurely because we want him to be a Drew Brees or a Aaron Rodgers when he's not? When he's an Alex Smith type guy. I mean, he gets you deep in the playoffs, but he's not,
Remember, he did that once. It was. We'll see if he can do it again. Before we start saying he's a guy that can get you deep, he's only done that once, and it was a great run. But
once shows that he can do it. But with that being said, I mean, obviously I've got a man crush on Bortles. I'm his biggest probably fan. But after the game on Sunday, where I didn't even watch the second half because I couldn't stand it, I'm saying the same thing. I was like, we've got to have a guy that can overcome that.
Yeah.
Then you start thinking about it, you're like, what quarterback could? Dude, there's like 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
but honestly, that's what made me so bummed out about the game on Sunday was how I felt about Bortles afterwards. It's like, I just don't think he's the guy. And that was a huge bummer because I want to be wrong about that. So if I'm wrong, I'm going to be so happy.
I agree.
Because I'm rooting for him.
I'm obviously still with Jason on this one. I mean, I think if we can fix some components, the play calling's better, and after the second half of the season, we get some guys back, I think we're going to be okay.
I hope so. I hope you're right.
I mean, the good thing is our division is freaking awful.
Yes.
So we can easily make the playoffs, and at that point, anything can happen.
Yeah, well, that brings us to this week's game. What do you guys see? Let me get, if you can be as objective as possible, realistic. We're not going to do, I'm not in the mood to do,
No bold
predictions. No bold predictions tonight. Those have come to bite me too many times. I mean, if y'all just are itching to do one, by all means, go for it.
Well, I think a bold prediction would be that they win, personally.
Ooh, man.
So you're saying they're going to lose?
I am.
Ooh.
All right.
I'm going to mute his mic real quick. Sorry, fans.
Hey, man,
give us a score. I mean, I can't be mad at that.
No,
I can't.
I mean, hopefully it's like the reverse jinx. Like I'm going against them.
Yeah,
So
sure.
pull it off.
You're going to rue the day that you picked
geez.
against the Jags. I'll see what I did there. Give me a little. Yeah, absolutely. You have to.
I mean,
what do you mean?
Again,
of course.
I kind of alluded to it earlier. I mean, their defensive line has got three legit dudes on it. Watt, I thought, was done, and he's like he's obviously healthy again. I mean, he's leading like what, got 5 sacks, something like that. I just don't think we can stop them. And if we can't stop them, we're not going to run, and that's going to put it on Bortles to make plays. And hopefully, I mean, that right there is a recipe for disaster. I mean, again, their offense hasn't been great. I mean, Deshaun Watson has thrown an interception every game so far. So that kind of gives me some hope. But again, it's going to have to be on our defense. They're going to have to make those plays. They're going to have to get the interceptions. They're going to have to get fumble recoveries. They're going to have to get sacks to put us in good field position. And then we got a chance. I mean, if it comes down to Lambeau kicking 3 field goals and us winning 9-3 or whatever it is, I mean, great. But that's a special occasion that hasn't happened this year. So, yeah, I think they lose.
Okay. Those are all fair points. I can't argue with them.
Well,
I think Jason's about to, though.
I hope so. I want something to hold on to.
I think before we get to the predictions that the fans care about, we should take a break. Leave with a cliffhanger.
Sounds good to me.
Fair enough.
All right. So we'll take a break and then we'll come back. All right, after that enthralling break of our theme music we just played, remember you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook, Another Jags Podcast, and Twitter, Another Jags Pod. And if you're just joining us at the break point, then you missed Joey picked against the Jaguars. and his reasoning was that we're an awful team, and he's now a Texans fan.
Yeah.
So
Dead on.
I don't know.
He's wearing a Deshaun Watson jersey right now.
Jersey T, not even a jersey.
I did kind of get this discount though.
Jersey
I mean,
T.
You know.
But Joey does bring up good points. If you can't not be concerned, if the offense can't score, then you have to be concerned. And the Texans D line is really good, you know. So for that reason, I think I'm gonna have to pick against the Jags as well.
Oh, look at that curveball!
Yeah, I'm gonna say that.
Oh man, this is like like fire and brimstone, man.
Yeah, I think the Texans. I mean, their D line. It probably will feast on our offensive line. And until the coaches can show me that they can adjust, I feel like we're just hitting our heads against a brick wall over and over again and expecting a different result. And also, I got to see the defense play with more fire. I mean, I've seen them fly to the ball. I've seen them make their reads much quicker, get off blocks, and they just looked like they were playing uninspired football last week. And that is very concerning to me. So I think the Jags may have a tough time until the bye week, but I could see this team turning around at the bye week and making a nice solid run in the back half of the year. But until, you know, is Fournette playing? I mean, if Fournette doesn't play, no way the Jags win.
He's definitely not playing.
No, I don't think he plays till after the bye. All right, so do you want to give a score prediction, or are you just saying they're going to lose? Do you even have the heart to? It really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I'll throw out a 24-10 if it makes
What's the spread on the game? Anybody know?
At Houston, I'm going to guess probably Jags 3 if I had to guess, but I can look it up.
Giving 3?
Yeah, I think Jags will be favored by 3.
Yeah, which is basically a pick 'em.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think that they lose by 3, so that
okay.
good.
There you go. I'm going to start by saying that I believe that the defensive line for the Jags is going to have their best game because the Texans' offensive line is absolutely terrible as well. I think overall our defense is going to play much better. I think they're going to have a better game than they did. Obviously, it'd be hard to be worse than they did against Dallas, but I think they're going to respond well. And I think our offense is going to have a better game as well. I think the game is going to be pretty close. These teams are sadly similar in a lot of ways. But like Joey and Jason, I too am picking the Texans to win this game for this reason. I think Hopkins is going to get loose a couple times. I mean, you can shut him down a little bit, and that's going to be the difference in the game. Even I think it's going to be a field goal type game. I'm not sure there's going to be a lot of end zone action, a lot of touchdowns, but he's just going to be able to flip the field a couple times, and not a lot of big plays in this game. The only thing we can hope is that our defense gets a couple touchdowns. You know, whether it's Joey had mentioned, didn't you say something about Deshaun Watson has thrown a pick every single game so far?
Absolutely.
So if our defense can get a couple of those and put them in the end zone, then that might change things. But I mean, our offense just can't move the ball right now, and it's everybody's fault. You know, our offensive line doesn't protect Blake. Our wide receivers aren't getting open. We don't run the ball very much for whatever reason because the coaches aren't calling those. I mean, we're doing reverses to a tight end, which is
who's
something.
Now on the IR.
Who's now on the IR because of that play.
Which I think there's a lawsuit against the coaches for that play.
I mean, that play blew me away. I'm watching it going, you just sent Niles Paul on a reverse. Who on the sideline thought that was actually going to work? Forget that he's even injured now. Who thought that was going to work?
We've got guys way faster. I mean, where's Didi on that one? I mean, come on.
Kills me. So I don't know. Maybe Rashad Green gets a punt return for a touchdown.
I forgot about that, though.
Yeah, he's back on the team. Back on the team.
He get some reps at wide receiver?
No, but he'll be the punt returner, obviously. That's why they picked him back.
Nobody else has done anything. Why not?
Yeah, but they're going to give Chark reps over him.
Yeah. I almost changed my mind and said I'm picking the Jags.
Are we going to lose fans because of this? All three of us
no, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to pick the Jags right now.
We will absolutely lose fans after this game. The non-hardcore Jags fans after this podcast?
I don't care about the game.
I told myself I wasn't going to pick against the Jags all season. But I look at this game and it's just...
Yeah, but things are night and day.
Not to mention how much success have we had against scrambling quarterbacks. I mean, that's like...
With a punctured lung.
Right.
And a cracked rib.
Look at the fact that we've beat the Texans, once in the past 6 seasons?
People always say Deshaun Watson has a terrible offensive line, but I'm going to stick up for the Texans offensive line here. Like, apparently Deshaun Watson has no ability to slide at all.
He just takes a hit every time.
Takes a hit every single time. Fights for an extra yard or two, sits in the pocket longer and takes a hit. Like, dude, no wonder you have a punctured lung. You don't ever get rid of the ball or slide.
Whatever the case, I couldn't care less how. Just the fact that it happens, and if that's true, then that makes it even harder for the Jags if they do have a better offensive line than we think. But
based on all that, I mean, this next game really is on Blake and the play calling.
yes, it is.
So hopefully both can come around and do something.
Why can't we just run the ball more?
I don't know.
Like,
Yeldon's been like one of the few highlights on the team.
I don't get it.
I mean, but he is like supposedly still hurt, man. I think
The first 7 carries of the game, he had 32 yards.
I know he's been.
I mean, that's good.
Out of the backfield, he's been our top receiver. He's been really good so far.
Again, that goes back to the play calling and the coaching. This is as much a prove-it game for the coaches as it is the players. Probably more so.
He had 8 carries. 8.
Yeah,
that's it.
What, Charles had 3?
5.
Like,
what are we doing?
I don't know. But I will say this: if the Jags win, which of all the we're all picking them to lose, which means they're probably gonna win.
Yeah,
because it would be amazing. And they are that team that it's the Jaguars. You just never know what you're gonna get with them. But the Titans are playing at the Chargers, so I'm gonna go ahead and say Tennessee loses that game. So if the Jags win, that's huge. They get a game up on both the Texans and Tennessee. So, I mean, this is just a huge game. And who would have thought that going into the, 7th game of the season?
It's like as big as it gets.
It is. And I agree with Jason. I think the second half of the season, schedule-wise, at least on paper, looks much easier than the first half. So if they can sneak this win out, and who knows what happens in London. It's kind of like a rivalry game in college. It's so different over there with the travel and all that. They could sneak one out in there as well. It's going to be tough to do that against the Eagles, but you never know over in London. I think that favors us in terms of just all those intangible things. Then they could go on a run in the second half for sure, especially if they start getting players back. But if they find themselves in a hole, 3-5 maybe going into the bye,
man, that's rough.
That's tough. And look, I mean, the Dolphins are 4-2, and it's early in the season. The Washington Redskins 4-2, aren't they? Or are they 3-3? I think they're 4-2. So I mean, these teams that we thought were going to be pretty bad are, right now at least, not awful that we have to play later on.
We thought Houston was bad. Now they're 3-3. I mean, they're on the rise. We're on the downfall. So that's not a good combo either.
I mean, this game is a lot.
So as far as like our team at this point, who do you guys think has been the best player so far?
Calais Campbell.
Oh man, these are some hard
Malik,
questions
maybe
tonight.
Malik.
These are some hard questions tonight. Malik didn't play good last week.
He didn't play good. He didn't show up at all.
I think Yeldon and Avery Jones. Those are my 2 guys.
Avery Jones.
I
Really?
was thinking like,
Yeah.
Okay.
Avery Jones playing good this year. He's playing really good. He's one of our highest grade defensive players.
Where does he play?
Avery Jones?
Yeah.
Tackle.
Okay.
D tackle.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to ask. This is just
You didn't know?
Well, I did.
you're being serious?
I knew,
Oh,
but I mean, this is
okay.
for like the people
my
who
bad.
aren't like hardcore fans.
No, Avery Jones been playing really, really well. Marcel Darius was playing well for a minute. He kind of dropped off the last couple games. Miles Jack's been playing well.
Miles Jack's playing really well.
Yeah. What about on offense then? Since obviously everybody's going defense.
Yeldon. I was gonna say Linder. Linder's been all right.
So nobody's going with Lambo, huh? Like the most clutch guy on our team?
Lambo, of course, has been awesome.
We had one field goal last game. How can you be
He
good
didn't
with
have a
one?
chance at hitting a field goal, but his kickoff hit the crossbar.
If he could hit from 70, he'd have more chances.
I think you should let him do it. His kickoff hit the crossbar. I mean, come on.
Well, kickoff's
I think
on
he could hit
tee.
it. I'll tell you another reason why I like him. Little known fact here. He drives a Lamborghini.
Lambo?
A teal Lamborghini.
Lambo drives
and
a
he
Lambo?
calls it the Lamborghini. To me, that means a lot.
No, that's awesome. No, Lambo's been great. Honestly, he has been. But
I mean, he wasn't that great last week. He got me one field goal in fantasy, so let's not be like
That's not his fault.
let's not be too quick to toot his horn.
when he gets an opportunity, when the offense gets the ball close enough to where he can kick a field goal, and they're not penalized outside, or when Blake takes a sack, I don't know if he takes a sack, but or was sacked. Maybe is a better way to put it.
Everybody forgets though about like Myers and like an extra
I
point.
agree with you.
An
I think
extra point
Lambo's
being
been
like-
awesome.
Extra point being like, oh my God, if we can get the extra point.
yeah.
Oh, he hit it.
No, Lambo's clutch as it gets, but the problem is like you don't get opportunity. There's not much you can do for your team.
I really just wanted to work that Lamborghini.
I know you
I
did.
did.
Yeah.
You forced it, and now here we are talking about it.
I was hoping to get a little more natural, but I figured I had to force it in there. That's the only thing that makes me happy about the Jags right now.
Give me a scenario where they win on Sunday. Come on, let's talk optimistically.
Okay. Jason?
Yeah, Yeldon gets going early. Jamal Charles figures out the offense, and we run the ball really well with Blake. We score early. Defense gets a quick turnover, get a field goal. We're up 10-0. We control the clock. Texans offense are what we think they are. They can't score. I mean, it's not totally out of the question.
No, I think that first drive we get a field goal, and then defense comes in and puts a couple of hits on Watson and puts him out of the game, and we win in that case.
Now they'll back up and come in and beat us. We don't want that.
Yeah, Savage is no good.
Come on, Savage. Let me ask you guys
Wrong
this.
team, I know.
Are you picking the Jags to lose? Let me say this. Is part of the reason you're picking the Jags to lose to kind of protect your heart and your emotions?
Yeah, man. I'm like just downtrodden at this point, man. I mean, it's really like...
No.
You just straight up think they're going to lose.
I mean, their offense, we said in the preview show for the Cowboys game, it's hard to be confident in this team if the offense can't score. And what did they do? They went out and didn't score.
Right.
So I'm in that same place.
I'm protecting myself a little bit because I still have this glimmer of hope, but I'm like too afraid to actually say it. Because if I say it and then it doesn't come true, then I might actually cry a little bit. And I'm going to the game on Sunday, maybe against my better judgment, but it's supposed to be a nice day.
Finally.
In the 70s.
Yeah.
So we got that going for us.
Yeah, that's true.
So I will be there and hoping that I'm wrong the entire time, but it's just, yeah, with the offensive line the way it is. I mean, J.J. Watt's leading the league in sacks right now. Say what you want about him. A lot of people don't like him. I don't mind him.
No, I think he's great.
I think he's a fake.
There you go.
He only raised like $1 billion for Houston during the flood.
He's a
The guy's
phony.
horrible, right?
He's a phony.
Man, that Michael Jordan, he's a phony. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. It's, what do you say at this point?
I mean,
I'd like to say that it's a rival game and it's freaking our conference game, but then we lose to Tennessee when we're playing okay and not everybody's hurt. So, I mean, it's like, at this point, I just hope there's some guys that are playing that get the fact that they're getting a shot and that this is huge. And they take that into account and just play their butt off, man. I mean, I think that's the only chance we have.
Let me ask you this, then. I'm just throwing hypotheticals out here. What if they end up losing by 30 points again? 20. Let's say 20 points.
you may have to find a new sound guy for this podcast if they lose by 30 points.
Hey, the NBA season did just...
Yeah, Matt, you're 1-0, baby. Let's go. Another Magic podcast.
There you go. I'm just waiting for another golf podcast.
Jags, by the way. Come on now.
Excuse me, the Magic are 1-0.
You and Hackers should have like a podcast. You're like the only two Magic fans left.
You're not on Twitter very often.
If they lose by 30, I think we probably have 50,000 people at the next home game. And wheels are falling off the bus. I mean, I do think still that second half of the season, it's going to be a completely different situation.
I think if we lose by 30, someone's getting fired.
What if we lose by 20? What if we lose
20, someone's getting fired.
30-10? Final score.
Okay, who then? Hackett? Because he seems to be the person on the hot seat right now.
I've heard people calling for Wash's job last week.
Really? That's ridiculous.
They were the number one defense going into that game.
Yeah.
And they gave up 40 to a team who can't score on anybody.
Well, that's true, but teams have bad games.
I agree.
I mean, that's...
I'm just telling you, someone's getting fired. Somebody.
What about Keenan McCardell?
Nah.
The wide receiver guru. What are those
Thunder?
guys doing?
You don't fire Thunder.
You don't fire Thunder.
Nah, that's not his fault.
Oh.
I just, Blake's not even looking to throw the ball over 5 yards. I don't get that.
But is that...
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
I don't know. I don't know if it's Blake or...
That's my question of how much like autonomy does he have? Like how
It's
much,
hard to know.
I don't think he has any.
He's not even looking. The only throws he throws down the field are like those back shoulder fades that don't ever work.
Yeah.
I want to see Blake do this. Throw a 20-yard dart. Not the lobs, not the, which are great. They work and are effective, but I want to see him step into one and throw a frozen rope.
But he can do that when somebody's open. He can. He can't do that into double coverage or somebody right on a receiver.
I don't care if they're open. I don't even care if it's a player.
Just throw it.
Throw it into the stands. I want to see him throw a bullet.
Throw it at a dog in the dog park.
Please. I'll tell you what, if they lose by 30 points, that dog park's going down. And you're going to see me on the news.
Yeah. What does the dog park in this season have in common?
Oh, maybe
It's the dog park's fault. I mean, we knew that going in.
Came to it.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that going in. This is all the dog park's
Jinx the
fault.
whole dang team, man.
Exactly.
Thanks a lot, Mark Lamping. Nice job. Any team that gives some of the best seats in the house to dogs instead of human beings. This is what you get. You
That's
get 3 and 3 in
That's
injuries. Cam Robinson, Marquise Lee, you know who to blame. It's the dogs. Is there anything else you guys want to add?
Yeah, just that it's like depressing as heck that we've all picked the Jags to lose to a not good Houston team.
A team that was 0-3 3 weeks ago.
I mean, that man, I feel worse after this than I did beforehand.
Yeah, I feel dirty.
Come on,
Like I
man.
need to take a shower.
Come on, Jags.
Yeah, I got one more question for y'all from Twitter.
All right, let's hear it.
I want to get y'all's opinion. I'm gonna start with Joey
Good.
because I haven't. We joke, but the fans love Joey.
They do.
The fans want to hear from Joey, so we're gonna let Joey.
FLJ.
Yeah,
Fans love Joey.
Yeah.
Everybody's likes to laugh at people or with them. Either way, I'm fine.
No, I think we're gonna get shirts and just gonna be Joey. Everyone loves Joey. So
Another Joey podcast?
we won't have to change the letters.
No, we don't.
We're good either way.
So this is from Patrick Jackson at Radius Johansson, and he says, I just heard the news about Shad Khan's offer for Wembley being rescinded. It'd be interesting to hear Joey's thoughts on that.
You know, that's like a curveball. Very surprised that happened because Shad Khan is the ultimate businessman. I mean, I think his entire goal is to be like a world renowned businessman because he's already nailed it on every other front. So for him to give up that, you know, where there's smoke, there's fire. So I definitely think there was something going on. I wouldn't have said that before that happened because the Daily Mail, I mean, that's like the Inquirer, maybe like +1. I mean, that report had come out a couple times. And when that report came out, the only thing that scared me was modified a little bit in that they were going to have 4 games here and 4 games there. And everything I read, you know, up to the point that he was not buying Wembley was that there's no way that you can have a team full-time in England without having like a staging thing in America. So when they came over for their home games, or away games, whatever you classify them as, you got to have a spot where they can practice and where they can have to, you know, travel from there. So that kind of made sense. And with him buying Wembley, I mean, he's gonna make a ton of money. So I could definitely have seen that happening, but him giving up on that, I mean, maybe he's telling the truth at this point. Maybe he's really doesn't want to move the Jags and just wanted to make them, you know, Jacksonville better. He's got a lot of money into it. So I mean, it's kind of tough at this point to make a call on that, but I definitely think there's some crooked stuff going on. And, you know, what billionaire doesn't do crooked stuff, honestly? I mean, you don't get to that point without cutting some corners or shady deals. I mean, it's not possible. So that's my opinion.
I don't have much to say. I don't have much to say on this just because I'm not, I don't think, informed enough. Joey's much better at this stuff than I am, but I certainly don't think this story's done. I think there's a lot more to this than, you know, it's developing. It's not over. And on either side of it, I wasn't, you know, the thing about Shad is, you know, he's the owner of the Jags and he says all this stuff about Jacksonville, but what I'm not getting from him, I guess that rubs me the wrong way. And maybe this isn't his fault or anything. Maybe I'm being too hard on him, but I feel like he could be, if he is truly invested in Jacksonville, I would like to see his name on some more stuff around the city. I'd like to see him just be a little more philanthropic around Jacksonville. You know, you go to the zoo and you see the Weavers, and they've donated all this stuff and they have this exhibit there. You go other places and you see them. They're still active in the community. In a lot of ways, I would like to see that from him. And I think that would give me a little more hope and trust in what he's saying about how, you know, the Jaguars aren't going anywhere, this and that, blah, blah, blah. So it's not even about London for me. It's about, you know, what are you doing here that gets you zero benefit besides your name on a plaque? You know, because everything he's done, as good as it is for the city, there's still a bottom line for him in that as well. And I'm not blaming him for that. He's a businessman. He can do with his money whatever he wants. He can take the team wherever he wants. It's his team. But if he's really being true to his word about Jaguars staying in Jacksonville, I would like to just see him say, you know what, here's something for the city that has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with the Jaguars. It's just to better the city on its own, completely unrelated to me whatsoever. And that would give me a little more hope.
Man,
not that I'm doubting, but you know what I mean.
I mean, doubting or not, I mean, yeah, that's great. But the Weavers wouldn't spend the money on the team to make them Super Bowl contenders. Khan did. I mean, the Weavers definitely had that line of like, this is what we're going to do.
They played in the AFC Championship game.
Well, they did. That was based off a franchise expansion draft. I mean, for the most part, that's where it got the core of the team.
I don't know.
I'm not that concerned with that. And I think as long as he keeps doing things that make him money in Jacksonville, he's going to want to keep the team here. So if he brings in the Daly's Place music hall, I mean, that's great. Makes him money, makes us money, and it makes the city money through tax dollars. Nothing wrong with that. If he wants to build the condos and everything, great. If we are profitable to him, there's no reason for him to leave. If we're not, yeah, he's going to leave. So whatever, man. I mean, there's plenty of other people out there like the J Fund through Coughlin, most greatest things ever. I mean, there's other options. Tons of the players do stuff like that. I mean, almost every one of them do. Whether it's a tax write-off or not, whatever, they're doing good things. So I don't care about that as much.
This, like everything in my life, I'm very conflicted on. It's I can see a lot of different things happening. This by no means he's staying in Jacksonville. People need to throw that out the window right now. If this dude wants to play 4 games in London, he doesn't need to own Wembley to do that. That's the bottom line. Does it make it easier? Yes.
Well,
does it mean that
profitable too, though?
Yeah, but does it mean that? Absolutely not. I think it is interesting at the timing of the report coming out about the guy who used to work for him, the report of him looking into the financial and tax repercussions of moving a team to London, and then him pulling out, all happening bang, 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 is kind of suspicious. Makes me think that maybe he found out something about what would happen with his taxes if this happened that pretty much made him realize it's not worth it. Like if there's free agents, we're going to have to pay taxes in Britain, and that would pretty much neutralize his ability to get any free agents. Maybe he found that out with his research into that. So the timing of those things is kind of suspicious to me. I love Shad. I mean, I see what you're saying, James, about not invested into the community as much. But I mean, if he put his name on those video boards, maybe it would make you think he's doing a little bit more, because I mean, a lot of people use the stadium, concerts and, college games and things like that. So I don't know. It's tough for me. It's his team. Like you said, I hope he doesn't move the Jags. I don't think he will, but by no means does him pulling out of buying the stadium mean that he's forever entrenched in Jacksonville.
No, not even close. And I don't want y'all to think that I don't like him.
Why do you hate him, James?
I know, right? No, I mean he's been a good owner. He's obviously gave us the scoreboards, get Daly's Place, a lot of good things, the indoor practice facility. But all of that also benefits him, even if it's just a little bit. And there's the city has paid for a lot of those things as well. So it's not like he's just this, guy that's doling out all this money out of his own pocket and we're not having to do anything. I think there's a conception there that he is, but he's not. He's a businessman, and he's a very good one at that. So all I'm saying is I would just like to see him, throw some money that has nothing to do with him. I don't know.
Well, I think the city bends over for him so much because of his potential and somewhat what he's done to bring businesses to Jacksonville from the European market. I mean, there's definitely been a couple of companies coming in. I'm sure they're getting tax breaks and all that good stuff, but they wouldn't have come otherwise. I mean, he does have connections, and I agree. Wembley, I don't think was ever about the Jags moving there. I think that was more of a status move on his part than anything. Definitely would have been profitable for him, but dude, his goal is to be a world-renowned Forbes top whatever billionaire. I mean, that's what he wants to do. It's obvious, and he'll probably get there. So whether it was tax repercussions or free agents, I definitely think the NFL might have stepped in and said, hey, we're not going to make it easy for you to do that in Wembley. And that's possible because it's definitely their call. He would have to have approval from all kinds of people to get that done and make it work right. So that could have been it, but I don't know, man. I mean, originally I thought that guy stepping out and saying that was like disgruntled employee, because it was. They kind of squashed it a few months ago, but I still think for him to pull out of that, either the NFL said you cannot base a team out of there, or there was something to actually real with that
something
guy.
Legitimate.
Yeah, something legitimate. I don't think we would have done it otherwise.
The timing suggests so. Well, I think that does it for tonight's episode.
One of our more down episodes, for sure.
Maybe the most down.
Yeah.
It's the most down I've been in an episode.
I mean, if you really care about the Jaguars, it's hard not to be, though.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
I'll say to our podcast fans, just bear with us. You know that we're not usually like this, but you probably feel like this too.
Yeah.
So you're
honestly, like if we weren't like this, then I feel like we wouldn't be real fans.
we'd be fake.
Yeah, we would be. We would be fake fans.
That's true.
We're hurting right now.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna pray and believe that Jags are gonna come through for us on Sunday. My head right now is stronger than my heart, unfortunately. So that's gonna wrap it up. Sorry if we were kind of all over the place tonight. We kind of anticipated that would be the case. Make sure to reach out to us next week. We're going to try and get back to our 2 episodes per week next week. And we're going to, again, cross our fingers that it's going to be a joyous week. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up. Again, don't forget to reach out to us on Twitter at Another Jags Pod, Facebook and Instagram, Another Jags Podcast, YouTube, Another Jags Podcast, and our website, anotherjagspodcast.com. That does it for tonight. Jags, we love you. We love you, Jags. We love you. Go Jags.